At this point, being a Mets fan is just a Groundhog Day of misery.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. Well, the New York Mets are back to being the 2024 New York Mets. We thought the players' meeting changed it. They win the first two games of the series. They lose the third game, but hey, they rally late. They got Paul Sewald into the game, got the closer in. That's great. Well, Paul Sewald looked just fine when he was closing out the series for the Diamondbacks to complete the split. And here the Mets are, after all the hoopla, after all the positive messaging, they split a 4-game series, and they are right back to where they started, 11 games under 500. And they had this game in hand. I don't do this often on this show. I don't blame the manager. That's never my MO. I always say players first. I don't blame the hitting coaches or the pitching coaches either. Because to me, the players played the game. It's Jake Diekman's fault that he gave up the 2-run homer to Ketel Marte that blew this game. But as we'll get to, as I break it all down here, I believe Carlos Mendoza is at fault for this one. And I'm going to go through it. So first of all, we also can't ignore that Jose Quintana is looking like a guy that should be added to this rotation soon. That's another thing I didn't think I'd be saying this year, because Jose Quintana, going into the season, I felt like he was the safest pitcher in this Mets rotation. I thought the way this guy competes, he was going to be a 3-5. And you could just put that in pen. There you go. That guy's going to be not an opening day starter ace. He did start opening day, but we knew he wasn't going to be the frontline guy. But I thought, all right, can he be a solid, dependable, every fifth day, give you some quality starts, do some good stuff for you? That's what I was expecting. And he looks like Carlos Carrasco from last year. A guy that age maybe has finally got to him. He's on his way out. Because at a certain point, guys just, they don't have the stuff to keep the ball in the yard. And that's the problem with Quintana right now. And it's funny because over the last 3 years prior to this, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball at keeping the ball in the yard, but not anymore. And in this game, first 3 batters he faced, he gives up 2 home runs. Second inning, leadoff walk, which kills you always. A double, gives up a run there. Now, credit to the Mets, though. And this is why I'm not going to knock the lineup, even though they did nothing after their 4-run rally in the third. But at least they had a 4-run rally in the third. And they grabbed a lead back. Tyrone Taylor, leadoff double. Jeff McNeil flew out. We'll talk about him a little bit later on the show. He's been awful. Luis Torrens, the new backup catcher, draws a walk. Francisco Lindor lines out. Pete Alonso with 2 outs. He ends up doing a nice job, 2-out hitting, gets a base hit to extend the rally, driving a run. Then you have Brandon Nimmo and JD Martinez with back-to-back triples. It's amazing how much you know the mood can change as a Mets fan, right? You're down in the dumps. This team sucks again. They're going to split the series. Quintana with the early blow up. This is going to be an awful day. Can't believe the Mets are back to being this bad team. And then a couple triples in a row, and all of a sudden we're on cloud 9 again. That's the irony in the baseball season and how much the emotions change through the roller coaster. So you got to lead. The lineup went cold after that, and you could totally blame them, and you can get into them, and we will talk as we preview the Mets National Series about where this lineup is going right and where it's going wrong, because I think there's more right than wrong right now, but there is some players you can still point to. But the point is, they grabbed a lead after being down in a 3-0 hole, which is not something we had seen the Mets throughout May do too often. So I give them a lot of credit for that. Quintana, he got through 4. But that 4th inning, it was a miracle he got out of it. He loaded the bases with a couple of walks, and he gets Lourdes Gurriel, who had homered off him earlier in the game, to hit a fly out, and he escapes that bases loaded jam. With that said, considering the state of the Mets bullpen, when I have gone to Quintana get in the 5th inning when he was sitting on 84 pitches, when I have let him try to get through that inning, I think I probably would have, just because Getting 15 outs from this Mets bullpen, you're asking a lot. But I also don't fault Mendoza for that decision. Okay, so I said that Mendoza's to blame. That one, I give him a pass on because I could have gone either way. When he made the decision originally, here's what I'll say. I did not bat an eye at it initially. I thought, 15 outs. But the way that Quintana was pitching, having a lead, I got it. It made sense on the surface. Daniel Nunez comes out of the bullpen, and this guy might just be the Mets closer right now. Honestly, they should just put him into that role. He's got the best stuff on the team. And I was talking about Nunez prior to him coming back, saying, man, when are we going to see Nunez again? This is a guy that I want to see in the Mets bullpen. I don't know if he leaves the bullpen again this year. He looks so good right now. And so he comes in, he works around a double in his first inning of work, a couple big strikeouts to strand that runner. That's in the 5th. He strikes out the first batter of the 6th. Then they go, matchup oriented. They go to Danny Young, the lefty. He gets 2 outs. So, all right, you got through 6. How you getting those last 9 outs? Reed Garrett comes out for the 7th. All right, haven't seen him in that inning before. Maybe Reed Garrett's a 7th inning guy because I'll tell you what, it's the best he's looked in weeks. Struck out the side. Okay, how you getting through the 8th? Here comes Adam Ottavino. Who's got the 9th? Adam Ottavino, 1, 2, 3, 8th. He hasn't pitched well in the 9th. I get it. And I know that Carlos Mendoza is searching for answers. So as much as I'm going to fault him right here for the plan that he put in place, I understand how hard it is to deal with this bullpen. And ultimately, it's the bullpen that's at fault. It is the players. Because if it wasn't for the Mets bullpen, this team would be 500. When Gary Cohen, who did a horrible job of the broadcaster jinx, by the way, when Diekman's on the mound and he says, the Mets have blown 5 games this year when they're leading after 8, the most in Major League Baseball. You hope it's not a 6. Boom, home run, darn. Like, come on, Gary. I know it's not his fault either, but, these are things that go through a Mets fan's mind as they're watching the game. So here's my problem with Jake Diekman getting the 9th inning. Ketel Marte was the one guy that couldn't beat you. In that dugout, whoever's in Mendoza's ear, John Gibbons, whatever it is, the conversation that we had, Jeremy Hefner, the guy that should be circled and highlighted and all the arrows should be pointed to, don't let him beat us, is Ketel Marte. He has been the best player the Diamondbacks have had this year, and he killed the Mets in this series. Why are you putting a lefty out there when Ketel Marte is due up? On this season, Ketel Marte, and this is after the home run he hit off Diekman, but still, has a 700 slugging percentage against left-handed pitching. A 378 slugging percentage against right-handed pitching. Say that again. A 700 slugging percentage against left-handed pitching. A 378 slugging percentage against right-handed pitching. And how do you get burned? How do you lose the game? Jake Diekman. Now, if you want Jake Diekman to face Corbin Carroll, okay. Fine. I get that. But throw out a righty for the first couple batters before you get to that point. And Sean Reed-Foley comes into the game and he gets the last 2 outs to push it to the 9th. And that was going up against Christian Walker and, Lourdes Gurriel and Christian Walker. So maybe that was the thought process, right? You want to have Diekman go up against Gabby Moreno, I guess, and Ketel Marte. Let me look at Gabby Moreno's splits because he's also right-handed. So let's look at this. All right. Gabby Moreno splits. He has fared much better. So to Mendoza's credit, Gabby Moreno has hit lefties or has hit righties much better than lefties. 707 OPS against right-handed pitching, 560 against left-handed pitching. Fine. Fair enough. Honestly, though, I just don't care about Gabby Moreno. Seriously, Gabby Moreno's got a 647 OPS this season. If he kills you, you tip your cap. You want him to face Corbin Carroll. Like I said, right? Corbin Carroll. That was the lefty that you're scared of. And I get it. Corbin Carroll last year was Rookie of the Year. And for a while, he was an MVP candidate. This year, he sucks both ways. He sucks for his lefties and righties. He's a left-handed hitter. It hasn't hit either. He's got a 535 OPS versus lefties, 579 against righties. If Corbin Carroll beats you, fine. Ketel Marte was the guy that couldn't beat you. And you could have started which, well, really, I would just give the inning to Sean Reed-Foley if that's the case. Or why not pitch Diekman and lead into Adam Ottavino? That whole thing. Just the fact that the guy that couldn't beat you is the one that did beat you. The guy that you should have known to pitch around, Jake Diekman. Geez. You had first base open. And the Mets end up, like I said, right back where they started. 11 games under. All the good momentum squashed. Is it Diekman's fault? Absolutely. Is it Quintana's fault for only going 4 innings? Sure. Should the Mets lineup have added more runs throughout the game so it wasn't a 1-run margin that the bullpen had to hold for 15 outs? Absolutely. Should Jake Diekman, a left-handed pitcher, be on the mound against Ketel Marte with the game on the line when you had another option you could have gone to, and you see the splits on Marte? That is negligence. That's going with your gut and not going with the numbers. And as much as people love gut, right? Old school fans, they love a manager that goes with his gut. Give me a manager that knows the numbers at a certain point and is going to go with what the numbers are screaming at you, which is don't let Ketel Marte bat right-handed when you're clinging to a 1-run lead in the 9th inning. All right, I got that out. I digress on that. I'm going to talk in the next segment about the baby Mets because Mark Vientos has been great. Brett Baty in his first game in AAA did what Brett Baty does in AAA, and Francisco Alvarez is on his way back. So I want to talk about those 3 guys and why they are the thing to watch this season. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining Supply House's free Trade Master program. And speaking of that, my cousin actually works construction. And so I was just curious. I asked him, I said, hey, dude, do you know about, Supply House? It's like, yeah, dude, I'm a trade master. So apparently, if you're in the field, you know, but if you don't know yet, you should definitely check out Supply House. Every trade master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime some news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions there anytime. We can go back and forth through text. Also, you get the starting lineup sent to your phone each day in a graphic, so you don't have to go on social media to find that. And also, you can take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So let's talk about the baby Mets. Remember last year when vibes were still good, the season was young, and Mark Vientos and Brett Baty were coming through, and Alvarez, they were making some things happen for a Mets team that was struggling. And Francisco Lindor called them the baby Mets, and then the baby Mets fell pretty flat outside of Alvarez. Well, year 2 of the baby Mets, and we're seeing some progress. We saw Brett Baty play some great defense at third base. He just didn't hit, so he gets sent down. Mark Vientos looks unbelievable right now, hitting .321, .377 on base, .607 slug. Got 4 home runs, 4 doubles in 17 games. I love that he has the everyday job. I think he's held third base down pretty well. He's not Brett Baty over there, but he's solid. His strikeout rate's at 21.3%. His walk rate's at 8.2%. What do those numbers tell me? They tell me that Mark Vientos is handling his at-bats the way Mark Vientos should and has shown the ability to in AAA, because last year, Mark Vientos had a strikeout rate of 21.6% and a walk rate of 10.8%. Now, I'm not surprised that the walk is going to be a little bit more in AAA than in the big leagues, but I'll tell you what, if you can keep that strikeout rate under 25% as a slugger like Vientos and you're putting the ball in play and he hits the ball hard, good things are going to happen. So Vientos right now has been, in some respects, one of the best aspects of this entire season. And it's a small sample, but just to see him really look to be comfortable at the big league level and performing like this, it's been awesome. And so he's the starting third baseman this year until further notice. Now, here's where things get complicated, and it's where the conversation gets interesting to me. Brett Baty goes to AAA. He homers twice in his first game. He's too good for AAA competition. Now, I love having him down there. Get red hot. Feel great about yourself. Give him at least through the London series, if not beyond that, to just work on his swing, work on his timing, figure things out. I still believe in Brett Baty as a player, despite how bad it's looked at times in the big leagues. And I think when he comes back, not seeing any left-handed pitching is going to help him a lot. I really do believe that. I think not protecting him for the first part of this season was a real mistake by the Mets, because it just compounds your weaknesses and makes them shine through a little bit more. And the struggles, I think, can become more pronounced from both sides once you get to it, because you're struggling so bad facing lefties that you're not feeling good even when you're in the box against righties. So that's one side of it that I think will be better when he comes back, if and when, I should say. But the question is, how do you get Brett Baty and Mark Vientos in the lineup at the same time? With JD Martinez on the roster, Pete Alonso, obviously, it is nearly impossible. So here's what I'm curious to see. Does Brett Baty play exclusively at third base when he's in AAA? Because with his improvements defensively, while you don't want him to take a step back in that department, like I still am on Brett Baty Island. I'm probably one of the few left that believes that Brett Baty will be the starting third baseman of the future, not Mark Vientos. That's because I think Mark Vientos might be the starting first baseman of the future, or DH, depending on what happens with Alonso. I still think third base is going to be Baty's. He's got to figure out the bat, and that's still a giant question mark. But to see him go to AAA, hit 2 home runs in the first game, like, there is that guy in there. It's just a matter of getting comfortable and adapt to the big league pitching, which is very hard. So right now, though, how do you get these guys in the lineup at the same time? A couple things we could see. More likely, maybe Brett Baty starts to take a couple of games each week away from third base, and you see him out in left field. That is a real potential, because DJ Stewart is struggling. We'll talk about that in the next segment, but his stats have really dropped over the last couple of weeks. He has an option. Easiest thing the Mets could do is say, you know what? We're going to take the DJ Stewart at bats away. We are going to continue to play Mark Vientos heavily, and Brett Baty is going to come into the fold, and Baty's going to play a couple games in left a week, game at third base. Like, you can do that. And I think that is probably the most realistic outcome here, is that, well, I wouldn't say the most realistic, because I just said it. Let me retract what I literally just said. The most realistic outcome is that they bring Baty back up at some point and they still do this time split at third base, because they don't want to do anything to hurt the developments defensively, because I think they really do appreciate and value what he did with the glove. And I get that. But Vientos is the one hitting. And so if you have to get these guys in the lineup at the same time, and you have JD Martinez and Pete Alonso currently clogging up at bats, one way to get them both in there in the short term is to put Baty in left field. Even more creatively, though, I love to see Brett Baty get a couple starts at second base. I'd love it. And Syracuse, I'm talking about. Just see what it looks like. He was going to be the emergency second baseman. Let him just play a game. Let him play a couple. Just see. Because if Brett Baty could start instead of Jeff McNeil, I'd love that right now, because Jeff McNeil has been atrocious. And that'd be a way to get all the baby Mets into the lineup at the same time. So we'll see what happens. Baty still has, I think, at least a couple weeks in Syracuse before they make any kind of move. So that's going to kick the can down the road a little bit. And honestly, it might just get to the point where you call them up mid-July and you let them both play. Or who knows, maybe you just keep Baty down there for 2 months working on his game. And then at the deadline, when the Mets pretty much inevitably sell, JD Martinez or Pete Alonso or both will be gone, and then you can just play them both, and the situation will resolve itself. But for now, I am curious to see that, because I actually think the Mets would be a better team if you had Brett Baty as a starting second baseman over Jeff McNeil, assuming he could handle the position, which is a massive question mark. So I don't know if that's going to happen. It's just some food for thought, and we'll see. If he's just exclusively playing third base in the minor leagues, you sort of know their answer, which is, while Mark Vientos is hot, he's going to start. If he fades a little bit, it's a timeshare again, potentially, and they're already sort of coming to grips with the reality that they're going to trade at least one or two pieces at the deadline that will open up playing time for both of them in the corners in the infield for the final 2 months. So that's the ongoing thing. Now, the most exciting development with the baby Mets is that Francisco Alvarez is very close to a return. He caught back-to-back days on Saturday and Sunday, 7 innings each game, which is pretty much a full game. That tells me this guy is basically ready to go health-wise. He's 2 for 8 with a homer and a walk, but that was the big test, to go back-to-back days. All minor league baseball pretty much is off on Mondays, so he'll probably get in there on Tuesday, make a start, see what happens. I would not be surprised at all at this point if Francisco Alvarez is back with the team heading to London. And if not, then if they really want to just give him some time to get his swing right, which is probably the prudent thing, then he'll be back for that next homestand after London. But because of how much I'm sure Alvarez is chomping at the bits to come back, because of the lift he might bring the team before you have a pivotal series in another country against the Phillies, I think it might happen. I really do. And I hope it does, because I miss seeing Alvarez in the lineup, see the energy that he brings, and honestly helps the pitching staff too. Speaking of helping the pitching, he also caught the Mets' top pitching prospect not named Christian Scott, and that's Brandon Sproat. So Brandon Sproat is in Double-A. He was drafted by the Mets twice. Okay, so they've loved this guy for a while. This is his first season actually pitching in the minor leagues after throwing a lot of innings at Gainesville last year with the Gators. And he's been unbelievable in Double-A. He got better going from high to Double-A, which doesn't make sense, but he's just figuring stuff out. 7 innings pitched. Again, that's 3 starts in a row of 7 innings pitched. 1 hit allowed, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, and he struck out the first 5 guys that he faced. He touched 101 and was routinely hitting 9,900 on the gun. This kid is legit. And I'm not even ruling him out for coming out to the majors this year. If he keeps going 7 strong every time in Double-A, for one, he's going to have to get the call to Triple-A, which is tough because they got a crowded rotation. So I don't really know where you fit him into a Triple-A rotation. But at the same time, David Stearns has talked about wanting their prospects to get challenged. And for some reason, this dude's not even getting challenged in Double-A right now. So it's something to watch, because you can see the Mets getting very aggressive with Brandon Sproat. He might be up this year with the way he's pitching. I'm sure he could come back to earth a little bit, but these last 3 starts have been special from Brandon Sproat. So we'll see. And Blade Tidwell is doing well in Triple-A too, but we've talked on this show a lot about the pitching prospects coming, and I've sort of said it could be a 1A, 1B, a 1A, 1B, 1C situation when you look at Sproat, Tidwell, and Jonah Tong, who is in high A. To me, right now, I think because Tong is a little bit lower down, we'll make him the 3rd best at the moment. And I look at the top 2 guys, and Sproat is becoming the A. He's becoming the best guy, and it's pretty insane to watch. 88 pitches to strike out 10 and get through 7. That is ridiculously efficient. So really exciting stuff there. Now, in the final segment today, we're going to talk Mets Nationals. I will be in DC for this series, so I'm excited to preview it. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Tonight, Mets Nationals, Mark Vientos, you can look at his stats. You got 1.5 is what the number is set at for his runs, hits, and RBIs combined. If he hits a home run, there you go. Pete Alonso, same number. I like Vientos in this game. You got Mackenzie Gore on the mound, left-handed pitcher. I like the matchup. Francisco Lindor, 0.5 for runs scored. Give me that too. I'll take more there. And here's a crazy one. Tomas Nido, total bases. Is Tomas Nido going to get a hit today? I think he is. So I combine all 3 into my pick. You can do that for your entries. You can also go across sports. So if you want to look at, baseball, WNBA, baseball, NBA finals when we get to it later this week, baseball, hockey with the Stanley Cup, all of it. You can find over at Prize Picks with quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That's what makes Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. This week, the NBA Finals will tip off. If you don't want to miss out on the best coverage you're going to find on everything going on in the world of sports, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. Now, I'm recording this show at 1 o'clock in the morning currently. Had a lot to do today because I am flying out to D.C. My flight leaves pretty early in the morning. I'm working through the night between what I do here with Locked On Mets and my work for Just Baseball, setting up the site for this upcoming week here. And then I'll be hopping on a bird and I'll be meeting my parents out in D.C. They are snowbirds all of a sudden. Since my sister lives in Chicago, they go spend the summer out there on their trek north, making a stop in D.C. for this series. And the reason we're going is because I'm taking my dad to some Mets games. It is his birthday today. So happy 59th birthday, Dad. Yes, I revealed your age on the show, but you look good for 59, dude. You're looking like you're in your 40s. He's actually lost some weight recently. He might even be, he looks like 40 right now. I mean, the guy looks good. I'm sure he's probably listening to this before he picks me up from the airport, going on a nice jog or walking his dog out there. So shout out to you, Dad, and I can't wait to see you very soon. Now, let's talk about the Mets in this series. And I want to go through the lineup recently because I said before, there's a lot I like about the Mets lineup right now. You look at the last 15 days. I love sorting by last 15 days on MLB.com. You go to their stats. They let you see what's been happening recently. And the reason why I love MLB.com for this is they update it with the most recent games. Sometimes you look at Fangraphs or Baseball Reference. They're like a day behind when I do my shows late at night. So I like the last 15 days, and it gives me kind of a picture on what's been happening in the Mets lineup recently. So here's what I see. Pete Alonso, 871 OPS, 3 home runs. He's not the problem. JD Martinez, 793 OPS. I was a little surprised by that because I feel like he's been swinging it better. So then I sorted by the last 7 days. OPS over 1,000. Makes sense. He's been crushing it lately. Francisco Lindor, over the last 15 days, hitting 339, 381 on base, 629 slug, 5 home runs, 2 doubles, a 906 OPS. Also not the problem. Mark Vientos, 997 OPS. Starling Marte, 848 OPS. Harrison Bader, 807 OPS. And Tomas Nido, as a guy that's starting but is typically a backup catcher. You see Nido with a 759 OPS over a 2-week span. He's swinging it pretty well. So all of those guys are pretty much everyday guys who are swinging it well. That's great. Where's the problem? Jeff McNeil, 188 average, 220 on base, 354 slug, 574 OPS. I think one of the reasons why the Mets were happy to send down Baty, bring up Iglesias, is it gives them another option to start at second base. And I can't believe that I would actually insinuate that a 34-year-old Jose Iglesias could be a better option than Jeff McNeil right now. But that's what the numbers are telling us. This guy's been awful this year. And I've always been hesitant to criticize a player's work ethic because who am I to say anything? Okay? Like, seriously, I didn't have any work ethic when it came to baseball. Now, covering baseball, I think I have a little bit of work ethic, but when it came to playing the game as a kid and through travel and all that, I didn't have it in me to push myself to the next level. Otherwise, I probably would have pitched in college a little bit. I don't think I ever would have had any chance at being anything more than a D3 pitcher, but I probably could have done that if I had really asserted myself and tried early in my life. So I've always been hesitant to be the guy to say, what's he doing in the offseason? But Jeff McNeil got the contract, and we know how much he loves to play golf. And I know it's low-hanging fruit, but he looks like a guy that has been taking his off seasons off. It just does. And maybe he gets right. Last year, second half, he was pretty good. But if you're not picking up a bat until February each year and you're on a big contract, you're hurting the Mets. And man, it looks bad. It looks bad. And at some point, he's going to be an expensive bench piece on the Mets. That's what he's going to be. Good luck trying to find a trade partner unless you eat the whole contract. It's just looking bad. It's looking really bad. So Jeff McNeil, you got to look at squarely and say he's an issue with this lineup. The other one, it's the bench pieces, and it's not really a big problem, but just over the last 2 weeks, it's worth noting that DJ Stewart has 9 strikeouts to 2 walks, hitting 154, 267 on base, 192 slug, 459 OPS. That's pretty bad. Tyrone Taylor, 167 average, 200 on base, 250 slug. It's tough to be a part-time player. In 2 weeks, I think both these guys are somewhere around 20 at-bats, so it's not a lot of work for either of them. But when you think about Brett Baty forcing his way back, that's where I looked at Stewart, because I'm thinking, well, he's got an option. Taylor does not. So that's where I could see that happening at some point, where DJ Stewart goes down, Baty comes up. Maybe he does play a little bit of outfield in that scenario. And then when the Mets clean house at the deadline, Stewart comes back to be, part of a DH rotation. So we'll see. Now, previewing the actual series ahead that I'll be in attendance for, we're probably going to catch 2 games, definitely catching the first game with Tyler McGill on the mound, because it is my dad's birthday tonight. So it's McGill versus Mackenzie Gore. Don't love to see Gore on the mound for this one, because he's been really good this year. 2.91 ERA, 72 strikeouts and 58 2/3. Left-handed pitcher, so you're going to see the right-handed lineup out there, although that's pretty much just the Mets lineup at this point now that Baty's gone. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe Iglesias gets to start over McNeil in this one. Game 2, David Peterson versus Trevor Williams. Williams has a 2.22 ERA in the season. That's right, the same Trevor Williams who was a swingman for the Mets in 2022 and was bad for the Nationals last year. I think he had an ERA over 5. All of a sudden, he's figured something out. He's been unbelievable. So we'll see how the Mets fare against him. Final game of the series. If you can get it to a rubber match. Sorry, I was about to say something that should be obvious, and I just got frustrated because I know it's the Mets and they'll find a way to lose the game. But if you get to a rubber match and it's Luis Severino, your ace, going up against Patrick freaking Corbin, please don't lose that game, especially if I'm there for it. But still, please don't lose that game. If the Mets can win this series in DC, go to London, maybe win one of those 2, and you get Alvarez back for that emotional lift, the Mets still have it in them if they can figure out their bullpen to go on, not a run, but could I see this Mets team with the lineup that they have and some of the starting pitchers that I like, Jose Quintana excluded right now, can I see this Mets team at some point in June reeling off like 7 straight and getting closer to 500 and just giving us a week of good baseball at a time? I think it's in there because the Mets were very close in this series to winning 3 of 4. Very close. So hopefully I can bring some good luck to DC with me, and maybe Robbie and Ryan in DC get this season back on track on my dad's birthday. We might be talking about that as the turning point 2 months from now when the Mets are actually buyers, not sellers. Probably not, but hey, we can all dream right now on June 3rd. As always, thank you all for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And also, head over to Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, giving you the best coverage of everything going on in the sports world. You can also find Locked On Sports Today streaming on Amazon Fire TV.